Greetings, children. Today we are going to learn the new lesson, the Silk Road. It is for class 11 CBSE students. Have you heard about the Silk Road? Yes, it is the historical Silk Road. Once it connects the entire world. This Silk Road got its name from the important goods that carried along the way was silk that produced in China. So this Silk Road is a network of routes that carried goods, culture, philosophy, ideas from China to Eurasia, then Africa, and way back to China. So historically, this Silk Road is so important. But here in this lesson, the Oxford professor Middleton, he carries out a Kora to Mount Kailash, a holy place in the Tibetan area. He goes for a pilgrimage and coming back. So this is the most difficult terrain he has chosen to go and come back. Because Middleton is an adventurer too. Silk Road is an apt title for this lesson. Nick Middleton started his journey from Ravu and he completed the Kora, going around Mount Kailash and coming back to his place. The description in the chapter is so vivid. We can really see the places in which the traveler goes along. When he started his journey from Ravu, he was accompanied by his acquaintance Daniel, and they hired one car from Ravu. It is driven by Satan, and they started their journey. On the road, he vividly explains each and everything he and his friend encounter en route. Now let us move on to the textbook and learn it and enjoy it from the real original words of Middleton. Let us move. Chapter 8 Silk Road, written by Nick Middleton. A flawless half moon floated in a perfect blue sky on the morning we said our goodbyes. Here Middleton and his friend Daniel, they said goodbye to Ravu, where they stayed for a few days. They described the morning as a flawless half moon. Flawless here means a faultless, a perfect half moon, or an immaculate half moon that floated in the perfect blue sky on the morning. Extended banks of cloud like long French laws glowed pink as the sun emerged to splash the distant mountain tops with rose-tinted blush. Middleton further explained the beauty of the morning. He noticed the bank of clouds. They looked like a long French laws, a long French law arranged in such a manner, and the clouds are looked like a long French laws. They are shone pink with the sunlight. The sun emerged to splash the distant mountain tops with a rose-tinted blush. The distant mountain tops can also be seen there. They are rose-tinted blush They're coming with a rose-tinted blush. This is the beauty of reading a travelogue. Even though we go there and see personally all these things, we may not enjoy this much. That is the difference between a travelogue and a travel. So this travelogue is wonderful. He brings before us the beauty of the Tibetan journey along the Silk Road. Now that we were leaving Ravu, Lamo said she wanted to give me a farewell present. Lamo is the Tibetan girl. She may be in charge of these two tourists. She promised Middleton a present. One evening, I had told her through Daniel. Why he told her through Daniel? Because Lamo didn't know the language of Middleton, and Middleton did not know the language of Lamo. So, as a mediator, Daniel was there. He knew both people's language, English and the Tibetan. So, through him, he conveyed her the message that I was heading towards Mount Kailash to complete the Kora. I here means the writer, Middleton. He wanted to complete the journey, that is the Kora. And she had said that I ought to get some warmer clothes. Then she told him that he would keep some warmer cloth with him to complete the Kora. Kora here means the pilgrimage, the holy journey around Mount Kailash is known as Kora. So Lama, as a Tibetan girl, advised him he should keep some warmer clothes for him to complete the Kora, to complete the roundabout pilgrimage around Mount Kailash. So, after ducking back into her tent, she emerged carrying one of the long-sleeved sheepskin coats that all the men wore. Immediately, as a present, when Middleton told her that he was leaving on the morning, she immediately ducking back into her tent. Ducking back here means stooping into or lowering herself to enter the tent and came back, emerged out with a long-sleeved sheepskin coat. This is her present. This is her farewell present to Middleton. And that all men wore, all men of that Tibet wear this sheep coat to protect their body from the cold. Satan sized me up as we clambered into his car. When Middleton and Daniel clambered into his car, clambered here means entered, sometimes with a certain difficulty because of the cold. They used both their hands and legs to enter the vehicle. It is called a clambering. As he clambered, their driver, Satan, he sized up the coat behind his shoulder and commanded, "Drop Basar." Ah yes, Drop Basar. Drogba here means a shepherd. Yes, after wearing this, you would look like a shepherd, a Drogba son. That is the pleasant comment he made, that Satan, the driver, made. Come to the next paragraph. We took a shortcut to get off the Changtang. They wanted to avoid the Changtang and decided to take a shortcut. Get off means to leave a place. To leave that Changtang, they decided to take a shortcut. Satan knew a route that would take us southwest. So they took a southwest route, almost directly towards Mount Kailash. This route is almost direct to Mount Kailash. It involved crossing several fairly high mountain passes. The only difficulty is they have to cross fairly high mountain passes, but they can directly go to Mount Kailash, he said. But no problem, sir, he assured us, if there is no snow. The route is so shortcut. The only problem is they may face with snow on the way. If there is no snow, there will be no problem at all. That the driver, Satan, assured him. Then the writer asked, what was the likelihood of that? I asked. What was the possibility of snow on the road? He asked. Then he said, not knowing, sir, until we get there. The possibility of snow we can't predict now until we reach there. That was the answer from Satan, the driver. From the gently rolling hills of Rau, the town of Rau had gently rolling hills. It is beautiful, not mountain-like things were there, but only the rolling hills. The shortcut took us across the vast open plains. First, the shortcut took them to vast open plains. Nothing was there except a few gazelles. Gazelles is the normal animal, that deer-like animal gazing around there. Without that, nothing could be seen on their first lap of their journey. These gazelles that would look up from nibbling the arid pastures and frown before bounding away into the void. As we approach near the gazelles, they look up from nibbling the arid pastures. The grass, the dry grass they were eating, they stopped it and rose their head and looked at, and they started frowning us and then bounding away into the void. As we approached near, they made a run into the void, into the empty place. Further on, where the plains became more stony than grassy, a great herd of wild ass came into view. Further, as they moved forward, the plains became more stony. The plain area was over. Then the path became more stony than grassy. Then they saw a great herd of wild ass came into view. The next thing they noticed was a herd of wild ass that came on their way. Satan told us we were approaching them long before they appeared. Satan, he knew the route and the things around there. He told Middleton and Daniel that they were seemed so close to us. In reality, they were far away from them. Kyang, he said. He called that herd of wild ass group as Kyang, pointing towards a far off pall of dust. Because of their presence, they could see a far off pall of dust there, wheeling and turning. When we drew near, I could see the herd galloping en masse. When they reached near the herd of wild ass, they made a gallop, they made a run en masse, in a group, wheeling and turning in tight formation. They all wheeling and turning in tight formation like a military, like a soldier group, as if they were practicing maneuvers. Maneuvers here means drills or exercise, military exercise, as they do in military exercise. They turn on some predetermined course. When they turned together, plumes of dust billowed into crisp, clean air. Billowed here means swelled out, filled with the air. Dust filled with the crisp and clean air. When this herd of wild ass turn around like in a maneuver, like in a drill. It's a wonderful sight that we can see only in the Silk Route of Tibet. Look at the next paragraph. As hills started to push up once more from the rocky wilderness, then hills started to push up once more from the rocky wilderness. We passed a solitary drogbas. Then we saw the solitary drogbas tending their flocks. Drogbas here means shepherds. Solitary drogbas, they are not in group but in isolation. We see drogbas, they are tending their flocks of sheep. Sometimes men, sometimes women. These drogbas, sometimes men in charge of their sheep and sometimes women. These well-wrapped figures would pause and stare at our car. These drogbas, they well wrapped their figures, their body and figures well wrapped. When we pause just in front of them, they stare at our car, occasionally waving as we passed. Sometimes they wave their hands as we pass in front of them. When the track took us close to their animals, the sheep would take a evasive action, veering away from the speeding vehicle. When the track took us close to their animals, when we reached so close to these flocks, they immediately turn around, would take a evasive action, veering away from the speeding vehicle. They veering away from the speedy vehicle because they couldn't experience that much vehicle in the route. So they moved away from our vehicle. We passed nomads, dark tents, pitched in splendid isolation. These nomads means these wanderers groups. Their tents, dark tents, they pitched in splendid isolation, not in group they reside. In isolation, they set up their tents, usually with a huge black dog, a Tibetan Mastiff, standing guard. The only guard for this tent is a Mastiff, Tibetan Mastiff dog, a huge black dog in guard of these tents, because they set up their tents in isolation. No other human beings, no other human settlements you can see there. They live in ultimate isolations. The only guard they keep in their custody is a Tibetan Mastiff dog. This beast here means these dogs, these animals would cock their great big head. Cock means they turn. They turned their great big heads when they became aware of our approach. When these Mastiff dogs aware of an approaching vehicle, they slowly turned their head and fix us their sides. Then they started fixing us in their sides. As we continued to draw closer, they would explode into action. As we nearing them, they explode into action. They started barking and coming towards us, speeding directly towards us like a bullet from a gun. They ran as speedily as a bullet from a gun. They coming towards us, coming towards our car that we see. Nearly as fast as the bullet. They are so fast in running. These shaggy monsters, shaggy here means the hairy. Lot of hair that you can see in these Mastiff dogs, black Mastiff dogs. Blacker than the darkest night. These Mastiff dogs are blacker than the real darkest night. Usually wore bright red collar and barked furiously with massive jaws. Usually we can see around their neck a red collar. They barked furiously with the massive jaw. When it opened its jaw, a human body can entirely enter it. That much bigger is their jaws. They were completely fearless of our vehicle. These Mastiff dogs are completely fearless. They barkingly approached us, shooting straight into our path. They shooting straight into our path, causing Satan to brake and swerve. Several a time, our driver Satan applied a brake and took a swerve. Took a swerve means took a turn to avoid hitting these Mastiff dogs. The dog would make chase. These Mastiff dogs would make a chase for 100 meters or so before easing off, having seen us off the property. These Mastiff dogs followed us around 100 meters. After moving away from that 100 meters, they knew that we are away from its territory, its property. Then it eased out. It was not difficult to understand why furious Tibetan Mastiffs became popular in China's imperial courts as hunting dogs, brought along the Silk Road in ancient times as tribute from Tibet. It wasn't difficult to understand. So, once you see these Mastiff dogs, you never fail to understand why the Chinese imperial court keep these Mastiff dogs as their hunting dogs. In those days, they brought it from Tibet as a tribute. While they were going for the trade along the Silk Route, they brought these Mastiff dogs for the imperial courts as a gift, as a tribute, because they are so ferocious creatures, ferocious beasts. They were suitable for any game of hunting. So the Chinese imperial courts keep these Mastiff dogs as the hunting partners. Come to the next paragraph. By now, we could see snow-capped mountains gathering on the horizon. After moving a few miles, they could see the snow-capped mountains gathering on the horizon. We entered a valley. Then they entered a valley where the river was wide and mostly clogged with ice. Clogged here means covered with ice. A brilliant white and glinting in the sunshine. When the sunshine fell on the river, they brilliant white, they are glinting, they are shining in the sunlight, the river. The trail hugged its bank. The trail here means the track in which they were traveling, that hugged its bank, that reaches up to the bank of the river. Then the bank of the river twisting with the meanders. The river going in a zigzag way, hither to thither, in twisting way. That twisting with the meander as we gradually gained height. Gradually they move forward. They moved forward and the height was increasing. And the valley sides closed in. Then the two valley sides are closed in with them. The turns became sharper and the ride bumpier. As they moved forward and the height also increased, the turns became sharper and the ride became bumpier. They had to cross several stones. It became so bumpier for them. Satan now in third gear as we continued to climb. So he couldn't move so fast. The maximum speed that he could keep is at a third gear. They moved forward. The track moved away from the icy river. Gradually, the track moved away from the icy river. They moved forward, laboring through the steeper slopes. Now they were moving along a steeper slopes that spotted big rocks. These slopes roads had lot of big rocks daubed with patches of bright orange leeches. Daubed here means covered with. Daubed means covered with. That patches of bright orange lichen covered in many of these rocks. That also we can see. Beneath the rocks, hunks of snow. Hunks here means pieces or chunks of snow clung on in the near permanent shade. They clung on the either side of the rocks. We can see all around the rocks. We can see. I felt the pressure building up in my ears as they move forward, as they move upward. Pressure building up in his ears. He felt. Middleton felt pressure building up in his ears. So he held his nose, snorted and cleared them. So he felt some awkwardness. He held his nose and snorted and cleared them. We struggled around another right bend and Satan stopped there. We struggled around another tight bend and Satan stopped. When they reached another tight bend, Satan stopped his car there. He had opened his door and jumped out of his seat before I realized what was going on. Satan immediately stopped his car there and jumped out of his seat. Before Middleton could understand what was happening, he came out of the vehicle. "Snow," said Daniel as he too exited the vehicle. His friend, his co-traveler Daniel, who came out of the vehicle and announced Middleton that snow was there in front of them, letting in a breath of cold air as he did so. When he came out of the car, he took cold air into his mouth. That steam could be seen when he breathed out. Then a swathe of white stuff lay across the track. A swathe here means a land stretched with snow. A land stretched with snow can be seen there across the track in front of us, stretching for maybe 15 meters. 15 meters length snow was in front of them. Before it pitted out means gradually disappear. So after 15 meters, it gradually started disappearing. The dirt trail reappeared. Only after 15 meters, the dirt trail, the dirt road reappears. The snow continued on either side of us. So as they moved forward, they could see the snow on either side, smoothing the abrupt bank on the upslope side. So the snow that smoothing the abrupt bank on the upslope side. The upslope side of the road is more smoothing with the snow. So it is very dangerous to drive along that slope. The bank was too steep for our vehicle to scale, and the bank was too steep for our vehicle to scale. To scale up, to ascend the road is very dangerous because it is so steep. Too steep for the vehicle to scale. So there was no way around the snow patch, and they looked around for another way to avoid the snow patch, but they couldn't find any. Then Middleton joined Daniel as Satan stepped onto the encrusted snow. First, this driver, Satan, entered the encrusted snow. Encrusted means the covered, the coated snow. He went there and he began to slither and slide forward. Slither and slide. Slither here means slip and skid, slide forward. Because it was not a smooth walk along the snow. A thick snow was there, and Satan walked along the snow in a great difficulty. Slither and slither forward, stamping his foot from time to ascertain how steady it was. Sometimes he raised his foot and removed the snow that sticked on it, and then walking forward. I looked at my wristwatch. Then Middleton looked at his wristwatch. We were at 5,210 meters above sea level. They were at a place, it was 5,210 meters away, more than 5 kilometers above the sea level. So naturally, snow they can expect, and the expansion of oxygen could also be sensed there. So he realized that the snow did not look too deep to me, but the danger wasn't its depth. Even though the snow was not much deeper, but they can't avoid the danger, Daniel said, so much as its icy top layer. If we slip off, the car could turn over. That is the danger they sensed. If they slip off from the snow, the car would turn over, he suggested, as we saw Satan grab a handful of dirt and fling them across the frozen surface. The Satan, the experienced driver of this route, what he did was he went out and go to the dead place, the soily place, and with his hands he took the dirt and flung over the snow. Satan grabbed a handful of dirt and flung them across the frozen surface. Satan knew how to manage the situation. He went out of the car and he grabbed that dirt and soil and fling them across the frozen. Fling here means that is spread across the frozen surface. We both pitched in, and when the snow was spread with the soil, then both of them, Daniel and the writer, they accompanied him and helped him. Both pitched in, and when the snow was spread with the soil, Daniel and I stayed out of the vehicle to lighten Satan's load. Then the rest of the journey along the snow happened without these two travelers. Satan drove the vehicle alone, leaving that the writer and Daniel out of the vehicle, and they kept away from the vehicle to lessen the load of the vehicle. Then he backed up and drove towards the dirty snow, eased the car onto its icy surface, and slowly drove its length without apparent difficulty. So somehow Satan managed to drive along the snow and reached the snowless turf of that trail, the road. Look at the next paragraph. 10 minutes later, we stopped at another blockage. Just after 10 minutes drive, they met with another blockage. "Not good, sir," Satan announced as he jumped out again to survey the scene. Satan came out of the car once again after just a 10 minutes drive. and he announced that the route was not safe, sir. This time he decided to try and drive around the snow. But this time there was enough space there to drive around the snow. Somehow he managed it. The second difficulty. But the slope was steep and studded with major rocks. But the roundabout way, the slope was very steep and studded with, and studded here means covered with major rocks. Major rocks. And studded with major rocks. But somehow Satan negotiated them. But somehow he negotiated, he managed it. His four-wheel drive vehicle lurching from one obstacle to the next. Lurching here means rolling. His four-wheeler, that is his car, that rolling from one obstacle to the next. They had to face several obstacles during that journey. In so doing, he cut off one of the hairpin bends. So, during that journey, he avoided one hairpin bends also. Then regained the trail. Further up, where the snow had not drifted. Where they couldn't find any snow drift, they went smoothly after avoiding the hairpin bend. I checked my watch again as we continued to climb in the bright sunshine. We crept past 5,400 meters and my head began to throb horribly. So when they reached at the height of 5,400 meters, around 5.4 kilometers, Middleton's head began to throb. I took gulps from my water bottle, which is supposed to help a rapid ascent. So Middleton immediately opened his water bottle and drank a little water. He thought that it would help for a rapid ascent of the hill. We finally reached the top of the pass at 5,515 meters. Finally, they reached at the top of the pass. It was marked by a large cane of rocks. At the top of that pass, there was a cane of rocks, a holy place, something like that. It was festooned with white silk scarves. Scarves here means that shawls and wraps, white silk scarves, and ragged prayer flags. This cane of rocks is decorated with all these festoons and flags. We all took a turn around the cane. This is the custom. They all took a round, a circle around the cane in a clockwise direction as the tradition. This is the custom demands. All have to take a circle, a round about this cane. And we all took a turn around the cane in a clockwise direction as the tradition. And Satan checked the tires on his vehicle. And our driver Satan, he checked the tires of his vehicle. He stopped at the petrol tank and partially unscrewed the top. Then he stopped at the petrol tank and partially unscrewed the top of the petrol tank. A screw was there at the top of that petrol tank. He unscrewed it half, which emitted a loud hiss. When he unscrewed the top of the petrol tank, a hissing noise could be heard, emitted a loud hiss. The lower atmospheric pressure was allowing the fuel to expand. As they moved upward, the lower atmospheric pressure that allowed the fuel to expand. He knew it because he had experience of it. So he unscrewed it and allowed the pressure to come out. That is the reason for the hissing sound. It sounds dangerous to me. Then Middleton remarked, "It sounds so dangerous for him." "Maybe, sir," Satan laughed, "but no smoking." "Yes, that is true, but don't smoke it at this place, especially with the near of the vehicle, he said. My headache soon cleared as we carried down the other side of the pass. After reaching at the top of this place, they started going down the other side. Carried down. Carried down here means hurtled down, sped down. They moved down the other side of the pass. It was 2 o'clock by the time we stopped for lunch. Around 2 o'clock, they stopped for lunch. We ate hot noodles inside a long canvas tent. The midday meal for them was the noodles. They took it from a canvas tent. The tent was part of a work camp. The tent was part of a work camp erected beside a dry salt lake. This tent was erected beside a dry salt lake, and they took their midday meal from there. The plateau is pockmarked here means marked or spotted with salt flats. Lot of salt flats you could see here. This area is marked with salt flats and brackish lakes. Brackish lakes means salty lakes that you can see here. Vestiges of the Tethys Ocean, which bordered Tibet before the great continental collision that lifted it skyward. And you can also see the vestiges of the remains of Tethys Ocean, which bordered Tibet. Tethys Ocean was there once, that bordered with Tibet before the continental shift happened millions of years ago. The vestiges of Tethys Ocean could be sensed from this hilltop. This one was a hive of activity. This place was a hive of activity, a rush of activity you can see at this place. Men with pickaxes and shovels trudging back and forth in their long sheepskin coats and salt encrusted boots. So people here are engaged in salt gathering jobs. So many people with sheepskin coats and salt crusted boots you can see in this area. All wore sunglasses against the glare. All people in this area wore that sunglasses against the glare, because as the steady stream of blue trucks emerged from the blindingly white lake, the blindingly white lake filled with that dry salt lakes, so many trucks are coming out loaded with this salt we can see in this place. Look at the next paragraph. By late afternoon, we had reached the small town of Hor. In the late afternoon, they reached near another town called Hor. Back on the main east-west highway. They came back on the east-west highway once again. That followed the old trade route from Lhasa to Kashmir. From here, the route, a part of the trade route of Silk Route, that leading to Lhasa to Kashmir, that is one of the branches of the Silk Route, that started from here. Daniel, who was returning to Lhasa, found a ride in a truck. So Satan and I bade him farewell outside a tire repair shop. Daniel, he wanted to go to Lhasa. He found a ride in a truck. So the driver Satan and the writer sent him farewell, and they stopped at a tire repair shop. We had suffered 2 punctures in quick succession on the drive down from the salt lake, and Satan was eager to have them fixed. When they started their journey from the salt lake downward, they had faced 2 punctures. And Satan wanted to correct the previous two punctures, the two tires with him, because that was the last option with him. Down from the salt lake, and Satan was eager to have them fixed since they left him with no spares, because now he had no spare tire with him. He had faced two consecutive punctures just after the salt lake when they came down. So he wanted to rectify it, fix it. And besides, the second tire he had changed had been replaced by one that was smooth as my bald head. Moreover, the second puncture he replaced with a very bad conditioned tire. It had no tread at all. It something like the bald head of the writer. No grip on it. So he wanted to immediately rectify the two tires that he kept with him. So they stopped at a tire puncture workshop. Hor was a grim, miserable place. There was no vegetation whatsoever. Then he gave a clear picture of the town of Hor. It was a grim and miserable place, he said. There was no vegetation whatsoever. Just dust and rocks. According to Middleton, Hor town is just dust and rocks, liberally scattered with years of accumulated refuse. He also noticed the years of accumulated refuse in the town of Hor, which was unfortunate given that the town sat on the shore of Lake Mansarova. It was grim because Hor, the town situated on the shore of Lake Mansarova, that was considered a holy water body in the history. Tibet's most venerated stretch of water. This Mansarova Lake is considered as the most venerated, the holiest stretch of water. The ancient Hindu and Buddhist cosmology pinpoints Mansarova as the source of four great Indian rivers. In the Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, they pinpoints Mansarova as the starting points of four major rivers: the Indus, the Ganges, the Satluj, and the Brahmaputra. The Hindu and Buddhist cosmology says Mansarova Lake is the starting point of the four major rivers of India. Actually, only Satluj flows from the lake. In reality, Satluj is the only river that begins with Mansarova. But the headwaters of others all rise nearby on the flanks of Mount Kailash. All other rivers starting or its headwaters is from the nearby flanks of the Mount Kailash. We were within striking distance of the great mountain and I was eager to forge ahead. Now they were within the striking distance of the great mountain and I was eager to forge ahead. He wanted to go there so quickly to see that Mount Kailash and reach there and complete his Quora. This is the first part of the explanation. For second part, subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. Don't forget to thumbs up if you like the video. Thank you for watching.